Welcome and glad you could join us today. Today we're going to be driving from the Eau Claire Supercharger to downtown Eau Claire. The route we're going to be taking today is partial highway and then city streets into the downtown area. We are using full self-driving version 10.11.2, and so this will just be a quick update to see how the car performs on a slightly different route than what I've taken in the past. So with that, we'll get going. Wait for the green light, see if it goes, and there's a green light. And the car automatically made the turn. So the car did turn into the correct lane, which is the right lane. It's going to want to move into the left lane to continue on our route. In the past, I've had some challenges here with it making the lane change in time to make the left-hand turn. So we're going to see how it does. All right, going through the intersection, the car is still in the right-hand lane. It has this stoplight plus one more before it needs to be in the left lane to make the turn. So 3 stoplights, we're going to want to turn to the left. So as you see right here, we just have to go across the freeway ramp and make the left-hand turn. So we're proceeding through the intersection. I'm waiting for the car to signal the lane change. There it goes. Actually did that pretty well. I think the spacing was good. It might have been a little closer to the car in front of us that I wanted it to be. And we've got a yellow light, red light. So actually that was not very good. The car should have stopped at the intersection. There was a car making a left-hand turn, which could have pulled out in front of us, but thankfully they let us go. I think the car was following this Jeep in front of us. All right, so the car made the transition to Business 53, and we're going to go up here and make a left-hand turn on Brackett Avenue. So this will be a pretty familiar route from what you've seen in other drive videos if you've watched this channel. So we are in the correct lane right now for the turn. It won't be for another mile or so yet. So I'm actually a little confused at that. The car should be in the left-hand lane to make the left-hand turn, but it decided to move into the right-hand lane, I suppose because I've got the set speed fast enough that it wanted to get around this truck right here. I'm going to reduce the speed because the speed zone is changing. It's actually 45 here, so we're growing the flow of traffic, but we should be a little bit slower at this point. All right, so the car is signaling a lane change back. It found an opening between the truck and this car in front of me, and it made that change. And now it's going to slow down for the car, unnecessarily so. And it proceeds. The truck that we moved in front of, I think, was impatient that we did that, and he whipped around us. But it looks like his path is going straight. We're going to take a left-hand turn here. And the car does navigate into the appropriate turn lane. So in terms of autopilot and full self-driving, I've had it since October of last year. I've had version 10.3 all the way up to 10.11, and I've noticed quite a bit of improvements since it initially released. One thing that I would say is really improved is how it maintains lane centering and lane control on most highway situations. One of the areas that I feel it still struggles with is when there aren't clear markings on the road. So it doesn't know where to go in the lane. Another area that we've had some difficulty with in the past is this particular intersection. We do start out in the left-hand lane, we make a left-hand turn, and we have to maintain the left side of the lane because there are 2 rows of cars turning left. Sometimes the car gets a little confused going through the intersection and it doesn't know where the left lane is to maintain that, and it ventures into the opposite lane. So I do have to keep an eye on it for traffic coming up to my right and make sure that we don't merge into somebody who's passing us on the right-hand side. So we've got a green light, momentary green light actually. Doesn't last very long at this intersection. And the car is making a lane change into the right lane. That's interesting. So I haven't seen that before, actually. Usually it stays in the lane, but it actually is a little less patient than I am today, so that's kind of surprising. So again, just looking at the map here, we've got 2 turn lanes. They both go left. We're going to be in the left lane after the turn to continue to downtown. These 2 lanes both make the turn, but the rightmost lane is eventually a turning lane, and so to follow the route, the car has to be in the left lane. That's another reason I found it curious that we made the transition over to the right lane at this point. So we are making the turn. Actually did that pretty well. I think it stayed on the right-hand side. It probably knew that I was critiquing it for past performance going through that. So at this point, we're in the right-hand lane. As I mentioned, we want to make a turn over, a lane change over to the left lane. And that is going to come up here after the, not the next intersection, but the one after that. I'm going to slow down and give us some room on this car. Okay. I have to get in this lane. So I actually took over at that point just to make the lane change because there was another car coming up and then a car behind that. So we really wouldn't have had a nice hole to make that change. So we'll put it back into full self-driving at this point. And I'll show the rear camera just to kind of show the traffic that's around us right now. One thing that I would say annoys me a little bit about full self-driving is that when it starts out from a stop, the default, even though the speed limit is 30 here, the default is 10 miles an hour. So unless you override it and set it to speed that you want, it'll stay at 10 miles an hour, much to the annoyance of traffic around you. So I actually don't care much for that. I wish that when you put it into autopilot or full self-driving from a stopping situation, that it would actually go to at least the highway speed limit. All right, so we're traveling down the hill. The screen here is a little deceiving. The car behind us is probably 1 car length back, and it looks a lot further as you look at the screen. We're gonna go here to the route, and we'll see that after this corner, we're gonna make a right-hand turn. So we do want to be in the right lane to turn into the right lane. The oncoming traffic does have an arrow at this intersection sometimes that gives it priority turning. So we'll see how it handles this. Okay, it made the transition to the right-hand turn lane. We do have a pedestrian, guy on a bike here waiting to cross the road, so we're going to see what happens. And I did see a vehicle there. There's a pedestrian. Look at that. It's got him right there on the screen. So I'm going to hit the accelerator, let the car know that it's okay to proceed. So I'm impressed that it wanted to stop at that intersection and let the pedestrian go across. That's exactly what I would want it to do, but then I would want it to continue on its trip after the pedestrian had cleared the intersection, and it was just kind of camped out there in the turn waiting for me to take some action with it. So I wouldn't consider that to be full self-driving and requiring user input to continue the navigation. All right, so right here we're going to make a left-hand turn. The car did great getting into this lane. It did not get too close to the curb, and one of the hesitations that I have is how tight it turns here and how tight it hugs the curb, because I don't want it to run up on the curb and hit the rims and ruin my wheels. So everything looked good through that intersection. We're going to go straight across the bridge here and make a right-hand turn. Everything's looking good. So through the intersection, the car maintained the lane. There's a bike lane just to our right, and it stayed clear of that. A feature that I see on this too is that it detects paintings on the road. So it should see there's a little bike painting right there. It does see the markings on the road, and it puts those on the screen, which I think is really cool. So we're coming up on this intersection with the stoplight. We'll be making a right-hand turn. The light's changing from green to yellow. Car navigates over to the right side very good, very smoothly. Okay, and it's looking for traffic on the left side. There's nobody coming. After full stop, makes the turn. Everything looked good. That was really good, actually. I don't know if you caught that on camera, but there's a car that was making a right-hand turn, and he was just a little bit too close to us. My car was turning, and it saw the oncoming car, the car in the other lane, and it stopped and let him go. So, not a very comfortable situation. I think if you're somebody who gets nervous driving, that would probably make you want to grab the wheel and take over. But I've been through that situation a few times and have noticed that the car does tend to perform that pretty well. So here we have a pedestrian crossing the street. We're going to see what happens here. And she gets across safely, and their car slows down just right. There was actually not a crosswalk, a pedestrian crosswalk right there. So the car did not have, did not see the crosswalk to know to stop. And it just saw the pedestrian and it stopped. So everything looked pretty good. All right, so we're going to end our video right there. Overall, I think the driving went pretty well. There were a few situations where navigation was not at the appropriate spot for a lane change or to continue on our route. There were a couple of times where I thought the vehicle was going to do something, and it actually did what should be the correct thing, which is follow the shorter distance as it's programmed to do. It's not the route that I usually take to get to this location, so I was a little surprised by it, and I thought it was doing something wrong, but actually it turned out pretty well. It did make a lane change prior to the turn into the incorrect lane, left-hand turn to get to the downtown area. And also, once it was in that right lane, it didn't make a change back into the left lane. So I actually had to take over and get back in the correct lane and then re-enable autopilot. So let me know what you guys think. I actually think full self-driving is proving itself to be pretty useful. I do use it about 75 to 80% of the time because I do want to test it. But I would say in terms of driving preference, I probably prefer to drive hands on the wheel more than I prefer to have full self-driving drive for me. Really the reason I would want to have it drive for me is just to take workload off in some situations and not to add workload by adding stress, wondering what the car will do. So that's all I have for today. I just want to thank you guys so much for watching, and we will catch you in the next one.